The morning sun on the frontier world of Lumerus rose over a quiet valley where a boy named Aaron walked alone with a wooden pack on his back. He had survived for years by gathering herbs by the riverside and trading them in small outposts. And, though his childhood had been harsh, he kept a calm heart. He was an orphan who had learned to endure the silence of the forests. And the endless wind that brushed the tall blue grass of the Valley Aeron reached the shallow bend of the river where smooth stones peeked through the water and where he usually found rare plants used for healing. As he crouched to pick a cluster of silver leaves, he heard a sharp cry carried across the running water. He froze and listened again. The sound came from the opposite bank, a soft but strained voice. He rose and stepped forward with caution. Across the river stood a young alien girl, her skin pale like river clay and her hair shimmering with faint violet hues. She leaned heavily on a long piece of broken driftwood. Her left leg twisted at an angle that showed she could not walk well. Her large eyes were filled with fear and pain. When she saw Aaron, she tensed as if ready to flee. But her body could not support such emotion. Aaron raised his hands to show he held no weapon. He had met a few travelers from distant worlds in the outpost markets, but had never seen someone like her. She wore light armor plates that hung loose from her shoulders, as if she had fallen from a great height or escaped from some violent event. He called to her softly and asked if she needed help. She stared at him for a moment, then nodded with a trembling gesture. Aaron stepped carefully into the water and approached her. The river was cold but shallow, and he braced himself as he reached her side. When he drew near, he saw that her leg had been cut by sharp rocks and that she had wrapped part of her clothing around it as a crude bandage. Her voice was soft when she introduced herself as Lyra. Aaron helped her lean against him so she could cross the river. The current pushed gently against them while she clung to his shoulder with her free arm. Every step she took sent a shiver through her body. Aaron kept his movements slow and steady and spoke to her in a calm tone, telling her that the bank ahead was safe. As they reached the shore, Lyra sank down to rest, her breath short, but her eyes more relaxed. Aaron tore strips from the spare cloth in his pack and cleaned her wound with river water. He applied a crushed herb paste that he had used on himself many times before. She watched silently, her expression shifting from worry to wonder as the cool mixture eased the pain. He asked how she had ended up alone in the valley. She hesitated, then explained that she belonged to a warrior clan that had landed on the far side of the mountain range. Their ship had been struck by a powerful storm, scattering small groups across the wilderness. She had been part of a scouting group, but had fallen over a ridge when the ground collapsed under her. She had crawled for hours until she reached the river. Aaron listened without judgment and nodded. He offered to take her to his small shelter until she could walk. Lyra agreed with quiet gratitude. Together, they moved slowly toward the grove where Aaron lived beneath a pair of joined trees. His shelter was modest but clean, made of woven branches and reinforced with scavenged metal sheets. He helped Lyra settle onto a soft blanket and gave her warm broth from a small pot. Lyra ate with careful sips while watching him with growing trust as the sun dipped behind distant hills. Aaron built a small fire outside the shelter and sharpened a stick into a simple spear. He was used to watching for night beasts. Lyra noticed his preparations and warned him that her clan would come searching for her. Aaron asked if they were friendly. Lyra answered that her people held strict codes of honor and could be fierce when defending their own. Still, she believed they would not strike him without reason. Night deepened, and Lyra rested while Aaron remained awake. Listening to the river in the distance, he wondered how a girl trained by warriors could seem so fragile and afraid. Perhaps her injury had dimmed her confidence. Perhaps she worried that her clan would see her weakness. He wanted only to make sure. She recovered without fear. As first light touched the treetops, Lyra stirred. Aaron checked her bandage and saw the swelling had eased. He told her she would walk again soon. She smiled faintly and thanked him. Before he could respond, a deep tremor shook the ground, followed by the rustle of many feet. Aaron stepped outside and saw figures emerging through the valley mista. Formation of tall, armored warriors approached with controlled steps. Their armor glowed with soft runes, and their eyes scanned every shadow. There were 50 of them. Moving like a single wave, their leader stepped forward, a towering figure holding a long staff. When he saw Lyra sitting inside the shelter, he raised his hand to halt the group. Aaron stayed still, gripping his spear, but keeping it low. Lyra called out to her clan in her language. The warriors lowered their weapons and formed a wide circle around the clearing. Their leader approached and examined Lyra's wound with the silent intensity of someone trained for command. He then turned his gaze to Aaron. Aaron met the leader's eyes without fear. He explained that he had found Lyra by the river and had only helped her walk and rest. He said he meant no threat. The leader listened and nodded slowly. After a moment, he tapped his staff on the ground, and the warriors knelt as one. Lyra whispered that this was a gesture of respect. The leader bowed his head too. Aaron and thanked him for protecting a member of their clan. Aaron replied that it was natural to help someone in need. The leader studied him with interest and asked how a lone human lived in such harsh wilderness. Aaron answered with simple honesty and said he had survived by learning the land. Lyra added that Aaron had shown kindness without hesitation. Her voice was stronger than before. The leader turned to the other warriors and spoke to them in a commanding tone. They responded with a unified chant that echoed across the valley. Aaron stood quietly and waited until the leader faced him again. He declared that Aaron's act had earned their gratitude and that their clan did not forget such deeds. He offered Aaron a place among them for as long as he wished. Aaron blinked at the unexpected invitation. Lyra stood with help from 2 warriors and reached toward Aaron. She told him that if he traveled with them, he would be among people who respected courage and compassion. Aaron thought of his quiet life by the river of solitude. He looked at Lyra, whose eyes carried both hope and quiet strength. He decided he would accompany them, at least until Lyra fully recovered. Warriors formed a protective escort and prepared to depart. Aaron gathered his few belongings and stepped beside Lyra. Clan moved in coordinated ranks while the rising sun painted their armor with gold. Aaron walked with steady purpose. He felt a strange sense of belonging growing within him as they traveled across the valley. Lyra told him about her people's traditions. She explained that her clan honored anyone who aided the vulnerable. Aaron listened with interest and realized their values were not so different from his own. Though he had thought himself insignificant, he now walked with warriors who saw worth in his kindness. By midday, the group reached a rocky plateau where their temporary camp had been established. Large structures of metal and woven energy fields stood between boulders. The warriors welcomed Lyra with respectful bows. Aaron followed. While observing the intricate designs on their equipment, several warriors stared at him with curiosity, but without hostility. The leader brought Aaron to a central shelter and offered him food and water. He told Aaron that Lyra's survival ensured the clan could continue its mission. Aaron asked what that mission was. The leader answered that they sought a stable place to rebuild after the storm had damaged their vessel. They planned to stay on Lumerus until repairs were complete. Lyra rested in a separate tent and soon called for Aaron. He entered and found her sitting upright, her legs supported by a glowing brace created by her people's technology. She smiled warmly and said she felt stronger. Aaron was relieved and sat beside her. They talked about the moment they met at the river and how uncertain she had been. She thanked him again for helping her when she had no strength. Aaron said he had acted on instinct. He believed anyone would have done the same. Lyra shook her head gently. She told him that many would have feared her people or avoided the risk of helping a stranger. She said he had shown courage beyond expectation. Aaron felt a quiet warmth in her words. As the sun dipped low, the leader gathered warriors and made a formal announcement. He declared that Eren would be treated as a trusted guest and companion until he chose otherwise. The warriors responded with chants that echoed across the plateau. Eren felt a sense of honor he had never known that night. Eren sat by a fire with Lyra. She leaned on her arm and looked up at the stars. She said that meeting him had changed her view of humans. Eren replied that meeting her had changed his view of himself. Lyra smiled softly. Journey had begun with a single act of kindness by a river. Now Eren walked among warriors who saw him not as an orphan, but as someone worthy of respect. The valley wind whispered around them as the stars brightened above. The future was uncertain, but Eren felt ready to face it with new purpose and new companions in Lyra. Once helpless and alone, now felt hope stronger than fear. Their paths had crossed by chance. Yet that moment had reshaped the fate of both human and alien. And when dawn came again, Eren stood beside Lyra and the warriors, ready to walk forward as one.